of course, you guys are always demonized as far right or even fascist. I saw an article in the Telegraph just the other day saying fascism could become normal in Eastern Germany because you've got a mayor. Of course, it's a slur, really, because there's nothing remotely fascist about you guys. Let alone it's not even really right wing, but that's always what's said. The far right.
Yeah, well, you are a UK broadcaster, and I can understand that, especially abroad, when you don't listen to alternative media in Germany, you must have that impression because basically all mainstream media in Germany, all of them, with almost no exception, are against AfD. Most of us hate us, and they really have an intention to bring our uh, voting count down. By whatever means necessary, they have that intention. Most of them would even admit that. You will hardly find any mainstream journalists or any mainstream articles with positive or just neutral views on our party. So basically, from their perspective, and it's really a completely artificial picture they're painting, we are completely 100% bad and evil and, well, fascists. Yes, they say that too. That's a joke. I mean, there is not even a clear definition of fascism. The term was coined back in the 1920s or 30s in Italy by Mussolini, and it meant a combination of the industry and politics to the detriment of the people. It has nothing to do whatsoever with nowadays politics, especially not with AfD. And the same goes for the horrible Nazi word. I mean, these days we are termed Nazis, which comes from nationalist socialists. And just imagine, socialists, nothing could be further from the truth. We hate socialism. We fight against socialism on almost every level. Personally, my personal CV shows that I've been doing that for 30 years now in many different roles. So there's nothing good about socialism. And nationalism. No, we're not nationalists. We are patriots, and patriots love their country. And the difference compared to nationalism is that you love your own country, and nationalists hate other countries. There's a huge difference here. We are patriots, not nationalists. So everything is wrong. It's a completely artificial picture, but I can understand. And tomorrow I will have an interview with BBC. I'm sure they will come with exactly the same prejudiced voices or headlines because they read the German mainstream media, and you can't get possibly an objective picture about AfD if you only follow German mainstream.
Yeah, no, I'm sure the BBC will be extremely biased against you. I'd put good money on that. Yeah, you mentioned the N word there. The N word. No, people must not say Nazi. I mean, of course. But yeah, of course, you're slurred. You know, you always. It's just whenever whenever AfD is mentioned, it's just the far right AfD. It's just not fair. Yeah, you mentioned sort of the roots of fascism there with Mussolini. I think like the root of it maybe comes from like fasces, in the Roman word of many sticks together. Like together we are strong. A bundle of sticks. And so yeah, the very idea of being a patriot, or the very idea of populism, the way the BBC and lots of mainstream media here, and I'm sure it's the same in your country, but the very concept of populism itself is somehow wrong-headed. I mean, that patriotism itself is evil. It's crazy.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way it is and has been for many decades, especially in Germany. Well, it was understandable to some extent after 1945. Nobody wanted to and could dare to be in any way patriotic in Germany. We were not very proud after 1945 about what happened before 1945, especially in those infamous 12 years. So that's understandable, but it's been 70 years now. So, and well, we have learned our lesson. AfD has learned that lesson too, as every German has in the meantime, with almost no exception. When we were founded and still are a conservative, liberal, but also patriotic party. There is no contradiction in that. By liberal, maybe I have to explain that. I don't mean the liberal in the American sense of the word, because there it really is a synonym for left politics, it's really left is liberal in the US. But the classical liberal stance, which I stand for comes from the 19th century, long before it was used in the US, and it is just the liberal libertas in Latin is freedom. We are freedom lovers, and yes, there must be some rules in a society, and you can over exaggerate liberalistic approaches in politics. You can in some areas maybe leave a little bit too much freedom, for example when it comes to drug trading, but this is not our problem. AfD is a conservative party. We, in many respects, we want to go back to policies that the Christian Democrats, the Liberal Democrats, and even the Social Democrats had been following up until the 1980s and 90s and even 2000s. This is more or less our program, which had been their program. So if we are extremists these days, all those parties in Germany, and they had probably a 2/3 majority in the Deutsche Bundestag at the time, were extremists at the time. That's just ridiculous. But yes, we also dare to speak out the word patriots. We also are patriots. We love our own country. And I think it's a sane approach. Almost every nation in the world even promote or foster that attitude with their people. So I don't think that's something to be ashamed of.
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. Not in any way, shape, or form. You mentioned there's sort of the idea of liberalism or classical liberalism, sort of not being authoritarian, and that sort of leads me into my next question. That the Overton window perhaps is not the best way to describe it, but just the whole idea that authoritarianism is on the rise from the left. Because I saw recently that there's been some noises in Germany of perhaps trying to actually ban AfD outright, just ban it. I wonder if you could talk to me a little bit about that, whether that is really sort of on the cards. Is that really likely to happen?
Let me not start with the ban itself. Let's go back one step. And to begin with, yes, it's also my feeling, just as you put it, that it is the left these days who are the authoritarians. Especially exactly what maybe in the past or in history the right-wing parties were considered to be. But today it's clearly left, especially the Greens. They want to forbid everything. They want to forbid us how to heat our homes, how to drive, what to drive, and so on. You know what I'm talking about. The woke and movement is all about forbidding things. So it's clearly authoritarian. It's almost as authoritarian as a right-wing government could be. Way more authoritarian than we could ever be and would ever be, maybe in a little bit other areas, different areas. So again, this is a joke. It's an Orwellian twist to say that we are authoritarian. It all comes from very authoritarian people. But we have to deal with that. It's a parallel world. It's an artificial, lying world that is all over the place in the German media about us, and in general. And I'm sure it's the same in the UK too. I'm following that too a little bit, especially in the US. It has become very authoritarian. Look at the universities there. It's incredible how those were the cradles of freedom in the past. No longer so. Well, yeah, and those people who are authoritarian, they have sent the so-called Verfassungsschutz. I call them the government protecting agency. The official translation would be the Constitution Protection Agency, but I call them the government protection agency. They have some authority because officially they have the task by law to look at extreme parties and extreme movements and to observe them. They've been doing that with us for several years now. Didn't really find a lot. All they found were word crimes, something like we use the long language, as all the other parties do. And sometimes we have a few people using the unwise words, but we don't have the power to do anything. We are not extreme in any way. These are not word crimes from the leading group of the AfD, but usually second, third, fourth ranks. Nothing serious about that. We have some 30,000 members alone. Sometimes even sentences or quotes from non-members are attributed to us or against us by the government protecting agency. It's an agency reporting to the Interior Ministry, Ministry of the Internal Affairs, led by a radical leftist Secretary of State, Mrs. Faeser. And she really is extremist left. And since she got power, she has immediately exchanged the head of the Verfassungsschutz, of the government protecting agency, a more or less serious or normal guy was exchanged by a left extremist again. He is on record saying that he sees it as his task to bring down AfD's election results. Imagine that. So he's not neutral in any way, but he has the power to observe us by Secret Service means, and he brings out a report at least once a year, and on the regional level 10 times a year, and they keep saying these are extremists, the AfD, without real evidence. We are fighting that in court, but it's a difficult and expensive process, trying to bring that away. It's all obstacles in our way, and now they have come to the point, especially since our election results have doubled in the last 12 months, that obviously they see no other exit but to start a process of banning AfD. It really is true. Since that happened, I get a lot of interview requests, especially from abroad. That's interesting because the German media wouldn't see it as an important development. But abroad, and especially in the UK, the cradle of modern democracy, you see it obviously as something serious. And it is something serious. It's very serious. I mean, you cannot defend democracy, as Mr. Haldenwang, the head of the Verfassungsschutz, claims, by abolishing democracy. And that's what you're basically doing. So I'm not sure if they will ever go to that point, banning us, but it costs a lot of money. It is, of course, completely against our reputation. It is hard to get rooms for gatherings if you are coined extremist and if you are under threat of being banned, and so on and so on. It really inhibits our work, and it is undemocratic, absolutely. So yes, personally, I'm in charge as the vice chairman of AfD for leading that those court fights against the Verfassungsschutz. But it's incredible. They have brought together 10,000 pages against us. Something a lot of it is complete rubbish. It's irrelevant material. It doesn't prove anything. And if it does prove anything, it's third or fourth rank officials. We have. Of those 10,000 pages, I would say only 10 or 20 are really relevant, and we have to deal with those cases. We would have done that. We would have done that internally anyway. So we're doing everything we can. But yes, it's true. They try to ban us.
Well, good luck with the court battles. Absolutely. I mean, it really is sort of really quite a disgusting, perverse thing to see you persecuted like that. Just a bit like Donald Trump in America. Just the inverse of the truth, that they're trying to protect democracy whilst absolutely undermining democracy. I mean, it's a terrible thing.
To some extent, we're copying currently Mr. Trump's counter strategy because I heard he has made his police photo public himself, and it has brought in some 7 million of grants to him or his party. So we also not only defend ourselves in the courtroom, and we are already at the highest court, I must say, but of course we fight that politically as well. We are talking about things like AfD saying we love our Heimat. Heimat is the term for home country. Nothing wrong about that, but this in itself is already being deemed as extremists and right-wing extremists by the Verfassungsschutz. Even though, of course, it's perfectly legal. These guys have never bring in an indictment against us. That may be the difference to Donald Trump. There is no indictment against us. Nobody has pressed charges here, but the Verfassungsschutz wants to kill our reputation with the voters. It's not working, but you never know. It's a hard fight anyway.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.